So, in terms of that Chinese view of what it looks out at and sees, and whether or not what it is seeing might be able to deter that kind of aggression, we in the United States have seen a discussion about evolving our hub and spoke model of alliances into what is often referred to as a lattice work. And in the Western Pacific, we've seen that turn into this series of reciprocal access agreements. Australia has them now with Japan and the Philippines. And actually, the Philippines just concluded one with Japan, which sort of seems to complete this at least grouping of these four countries into something like a lattice work. And in fact, I believe that one of the terms that's emerged recently has been to differentiate it from the Quad, which is more of a political grouping at this point. They've called it the Squad. At least they do up here in the Philippines. Does this first of all, what is the impact of these reciprocal access agreements? What does it mean? And then symbolically and in terms of deterrence, does this actually have the potential to deter China from its aggressions?
Ray, I think it does, but it's at the lighter end of deterrence. I'm a strong supporter of the latter strategy. Deputy Secretary Campbell's used that term. Secretary Blinken has, and others as well. I'm a supporter of it, but I'm more favourably disposed to thickening, if you like, the struts of the lattice. You can have in your garden a very thin timber lattice, which is reasonably easy to break, or you can have a lattice in a construction site that's steel and reinforced concrete. I prefer for the harder version of a lattice rather than the sort of lattice that you'd have where you might grow some vines over a fence. But look, it's a good start. What it means practically is that the hub and spoke model, famously termed after the series of treaties that were signed in San Francisco in 1951, very different from the NATO construct, as I think everyone who's got a passing interest in these matters would know. In 1949, NATO is established as a truly multilateral military alliance with Article 5 assurances. Very different situation in the Pacific area, and for reasons to do with signing a peace treaty with Japan and re-energising Japanese industrial development. The United States, at the time, decided on a course of bilateral security agreements that everyone describes as the hub and spoke model. The lattice is really about creating struts between the spokes. This might be newsworthy and might push your ratings along. I think that the lattice work, though, or the lattice strategy, whether it's a timber flimsy lattice or a steel and reinforced concrete lattice that you find in a construction site, I think itself is only a midpoint strategy. I think at some point, as we get closer to 26, 27, if we get through 27 and the National Congress likely to be in October of 27, where I think there'd be very high odds of President Xi seeking and gaining a fourth term. I think by that stage, some kind of Pacific area treaty construct will have to be seriously considered. And it was, as we know, toyed with SEATO in the early 1950s. That didn't really go anywhere, and SEATO went well into the Indian Ocean area. It had Pakistan in it, for instance. But a Pacific Area Treaty Organisation, I think, is something that we should seriously consider, a collective security agreement, because by that stage, and I'm not talking about any time soon, and I understand the different sensitivities. Being an Australian security official for so long, I'm deeply aware of and alert to the sensitivities with ASEAN, with individual ASEAN countries. There are particular issues that apply in Korea because of the armistice arrangements and the particular military planning and governance arrangements in Korea. I'm deeply aware of the history and why it's principally in the case of Japan, a US-Japan bilateral arrangement, although that's changing for the reasons you've just spoken about. But Ray, if we have the good fortune of getting through the next couple of years without these incidents, either in the Senkakus or in and around the Western Philippines or around Taiwan, I think rather than waking up every morning saying, well, the danger's past, I think we wake up every morning saying the sand is leaving the hourglass because she has now invested so much in this concept of national rejuvenation with the acquisition, annexation, subjugation of Taiwan as being the centerpiece, that every day that doesn't happen is a day that we get closer to that reckoning. Because I doubt very much, and it'd be fascinating to see what psychological profiles people have been able to garner of the president, the general secretary, as he more properly is. His presidential office is really just an accoutrement on his role as the head of the party. I can't see the man waking up one day saying, you know what, maybe I've pushed this a bit too hard, maybe in the interest of global prosperity, maybe in the interest of a better world, and dealing with other issues such as poverty, climate, and so on and so forth. Maybe I should change my approach. I just don't see the guy changing. And so therefore, if imagine this scenario, it's late 2026, we're going into 27, nothing major or significant has happened. There might have been some skirmishes, there might have been incidents at sea, there might have been potentially very challenging incidents that have de-escalated, but we've managed to avoid the big one. As we go into 2027, and going back to Ian Easton's book of some years ago, when you look at the most opportune military conditions in terms of tide and typhoon conditions, and we're getting through that March-April period, which is only some 33 months away, March-April of 2027, they're getting ready for their Congress. They're getting ready for the 100th anniversary of the founding of the PLA as the armed wing of the CCP. That is a very dangerous time. That's a very, very dangerous time. And I just wonder, and I'm just sketching this in my own mind as I'm speaking to you, I just wonder whether an alliance system based on the strategic assumptions of 1951 would cut it in those circumstances in 2027.